Barcelona and Madrid, it's not just something around sports, it's around everything else. I mean, it's political.
It's almost Spain against what you conceive as another country. The noise, the hatred, the level of vitriol is extraordinary.
Putting those two together, box office.
The players hating each other.
The whole rivalry, and it probably escalated a little bit too much.
Look to that game, it's like nothing else is going on in the world.
The whole world was looking at them. The whole of Spain divided into two. And the tension was something that we'd never seen before.
Josep Guardiola è un entrenador fantástico de fútbol, pero ha ganado una Champions y a mí me daría vergüenza de ganarla.
Mourinho me ha tuteado y yo también lo voy a tutear. Me ha llamado Tec y yo le voy a llamar José. En esta sala él es el puto jefe, el puto amo, es el que más sabe del mundo y yo no quiero ni competir ni un instante.
A ti por fin no es en Madrid, ¿no?
Sí, roban a los... se quejan, hacen...
y roban, ¿no?
Por supuesto, no es normal que el Barcelona haya pagado al vicepresidente de los árbitros más de 8 millones de euros durante al menos 17 años.
Today, we're tackling something truly monumental. Not just, the world's biggest sports rivalry, but really a conflict that's defined, divided, and dramatically shaped the history of an entire country. Real Madrid versus FC Barcelona, El Clásico. For over a century, this has been so much more than a football match. It is the eternal war of two nations within a nation, to deeply ingrained political visions of Spain. To understand this clash is basically to understand modern Spain. Okay, let's get into this incredible history. All right, let's start at the very beginning, the first meeting. May 13th, 1902, in Madrid. It was the Copa de la Coronación, a precursor to the Copa del Rey, and the whole tournament was set up to celebrate King Alfonso III's coronation. The event itself was an act of centralist state celebration, and the club's origins are telling too. FC Barcelona, founded 1899 by Swiss, Catalan, English folks, led by Joan Gamper. They were the sort of regional outsiders. Their opponents, Madrid Football Club, were barely even a club yet, founded just months before this game in 1802, representing the capital. And Barcelona actually won that first encounter, 3-1 in the semifinal. The seed was planted, definitely. Even though Barca lost the final of that tournament, that first win against Madrid, it mattered. The rivalry wasn't political yet, not really, but it was regional. Capital versus the region. Fast forward to 1916, the Copa del Rey semifinals. This is where we see the first real flashpoint. The rules were different then, no goal difference. So the first leg, Barcelona wins 2-1. Second leg, Madrid wins 4-1. So they have to play a replay. And that replay finished, get this, 6-6 after extra time. Just imagine the tension, the exhaustion. So they need a fourth match, a final decider. Madrid finally won that one 4-2. The sources talk about violent fouls, huge refereeing controversies, and crucially, the Barcelona press just explodes. They accuse the Spanish Football Federation of blatant bias towards the capital club. Right there, that early, it establishes the precedent. Barcelona is the victim of institutional unfairness. Madrid benefits from the system. It absolutely becomes institutionalized in the 1920s. In 1920, Madrid gets royal patronage. They officially become Real Madrid. This move cements their link to central authority, symbolized forever by that royal crown on their crest. And then comes the moment that truly solidifies their political identity. 1925, this is during the military dictatorship of Miguel Primo de Rivera. At Liquor, the crowd whistles the Spanish national anthem, a protest against the dictatorship. The regime's response, swift and brutal. The stadium's closed for 6 months, and club founder Joan Gamper is forced into exile, just for whistling. And the decade ends tragically, just as the Spanish Civil War is about to tear the country apart. The rivalry was intense on the pitch already. Madrid hammered Barca 8-2 in 1935. Yeah. But in 1936, the war turns it into literally a matter of life and death. The Spanish Civil War breaks out in 1936, and the president of FC Barcelona at the time, Josep Sunyol, who was also a very prominent left-wing Catalan politician, he's arrested near Madrid by Francoist forces and executed. No trial. His death immediately turns him into a martyr. It cements Barcelona's identity forever as "Make un club." More than a club, they become this living repository of Catalan political and cultural identity under threat. By 1939, when Franco wins the war, Barcelona is devastated. Their stadium was bombed by Italian fascist planes, their leaders dead or exiled. Madrid, on the other hand, is poised to become the regime's sporting flagship. So Franco takes power in 1939, a brutal centralized dictatorship, and it's immediately hostile to regional identities, especially Catalan and Basque. Football wasn't spared, it became a tool. And the regime went straight for the symbols. FC Barcelona was forced to change its name to Castilianize it, from the Catalan Football Club Barcelona to the Spanish Club de Futbol Barcelona, and the Catalan flag. Banned. Forbidden on the crest, forbidden in the stadium. The Catalan language itself was suppressed in public life. You couldn't speak it openly at the games, couldn't use it in official communications. Imagine the pressure the control needed to enforce that. Meanwhile, for Real Madrid, this period was an opportunity. Franco himself wasn't supposedly a massive football fan, but the people around him, the regime's leaders, they understood the power of football. Madrid's leadership, particularly Santiago Bernabeu, who became president in 1943, they aligned the club, consciously or not, with the regime's goals. This positioned them for decades of, let's say, institutional advantage, while Barca, they were just trying to survive. Their finances were wrecked, their stadium damaged. Only the loyalty of their members, the socios, kept them afloat. The 1943 Copa del Generalissimo scandal. This is maybe the foundational scandal of the whole rivalry, the one that poisons the well permanently. The Copa del Generalissimo, the trophy, was named after General Franco himself. Every match for that cup was inherently political. And the story of the 11-1. First leg at La Cor in Barcelona. Barca win 3-0. Big defiant celebrations from the Catalan fans. Seen as provocative by the regime, naturally. Then the second leg at Madrid's old Chamartín Stadium, the result. Real Madrid 11, Barcelona 1. This is where it gets murky and highly controversial. Multiple historical accounts, including testimony from Barca players later on, claim that before the second leg, state security officials, maybe the director of state security himself, visited the Barcelona dressing room. Essentially a warning, a reminder of the regime's generosity in allowing Catalonia to participate in the competition, and a strong suggestion that they shouldn't display any excessive Catalan pride or, try too hard. There were reports of police intimidation, pressure on the referee. Players said they were genuinely scared. That 11-1 wasn't a football result, it was state coercion made manifest on the scoreboard, a message sent. The fallout was huge. It was so scandalous that the presidents of both clubs were forced to resign afterwards, supposedly to calm things down. But for Barcelona supporters, that 11-1 became the ultimate symbol, the eternal proof that Madrid's rise was greased by dictatorship. If the 11-1 was about intimidation, the Di Stéfano affair 10 years later felt like outright theft. This is arguably the most pivotal moment in the rivalry's history, the one that shaped European football for decades. Alfredo Di Stéfano, Argentinian forward, playing in Colombia, widely seen as the best player in the world. Both clubs wanted him. Total chaos. So Barcelona strikes the deal with his original Argentine club, River Plate. They actually bring Di Stéfano and his family to Spain. He even plays in a friendly for Barca in the summer of '53. They think they've got their man. But his Colombian club, Millonarios, also claims rights to him. And they sell those rights to Real Madrid. So you've got two agreements, two different clubs claiming ownership, one global superstar caught in the middle. Well, the Spanish Football Federation steps in. And remember, they're operating directly under the Franco regime's authority. They decree this bizarre compromise. Di Stéfano would alternate seasons. 1 year Madrid, 1 year Barcelona, starting with Madrid. The reaction from Barcelona fans was immediate outrage. But it gets worse. The sources say Barcelona's board actually resigned in protest rather than accept this humiliation of sharing their star. But this is where the regime pressure becomes undeniable. Franco's government quietly but firmly leaned on Barca. withdraw from the deal entirely, or else. Veiled threats about the club's future, its financial stability. Di Stéfano signed fully for Madrid, wore the white shirt forever. But for Catalans, this transfer was the original sin, the moment the regime openly stole their future success. Santiago Bernabéu, Madrid's powerful president, works behind the scenes, solidifies the deal with Millonarios too. Then, in September 1953, the RFEF announces this utterly bizarre compromise. Di Stéfano becomes the conductor of Madrid's Golden Orchestra. He leads them to 5 consecutive European Cups, 1955 to 1960. Unprecedented. Di Stéfano's first Clásico. Madrid won 5-0, he scored 4 goals. The symbolism couldn't be clearer. For Barca fans and many neutrals, this was the original sin. The regime actively used Madrid's triumphs to symbolize a strong, unified Spain to the world. It helped cleanse their image, project power. The white shirt became the symbol of the nation's strength. Meanwhile, Barcelona carried the frustrated hopes of a silenced Catalonia. And then an even more powerful act in 1968. Another Copa final, again in the Bernabéu. Barcelona shocked Madrid again, winning 1-0. This transformed the stadium, just for a moment, into one of the only safe public spaces where Catalan identity could be expressed without immediate fear of arrest. And these acts were crucial for Barca's self-image. They knew they probably couldn't win the league consistently. Madrid won 8 titles between 61 and 69. This brings us to the 1970 Copa del Generalissimo quarterfinal scandal, known forever after as the Gruchetada. The referee, José Emilio Gurucheta, awarded Madrid this hugely dubious penalty. The foul was clearly committed outside the box, everyone could see it. Madrid scores from the resulting chaos, goes on to win 2-0. The term Gurucheta instantly became shorthand in Spanish football for a blatant refereeing robbery. Gurucheta was seen as an instrument of the regime. But then everything changes in 1973, the arrival of Johan Cruyff. This transfer was political from the absolute get-go. Franco's regime initially tried to block it. They wanted Cruyff, the world's best player, to go to Madrid, naturally. But Cruyff himself insisted. He wanted Barcelona. He famously stated he would never play for a team linked to Franco. Cruyff's choice and his immediate impact were monumental. He didn't just play football. He galvanized the whole Catalan resistance movement simply by wearing the Blaugrana shirt. His talent was incredible, obviously. He propelled Barca to their first La Liga title in 14 years. And then came February 17th, 1974. The day the earth shook at the Bernabéu. Real Madrid 0, Barcelona 5. Cruyff was majestic, pulling the strings. Goals from Asensi, Cruyff himself, Juan Carlos, Sotelo, Marshall. It wasn't just a win, it was a humiliation, an absolute masterclass. It was celebrated wildly back in Barcelona, not just as a football victory, but as a victory over the system, over the regime achieved under Franco's nose. Some Madrid fans even applauded Barca at the end, acknowledging the brilliance. Rinus Michels, the architect, he lands in Barcelona in 71, importing those total football ideas directly from Ajax, concepts like, structure, fluidity, and tactical intelligence, really sophisticated stuff for the time. Michels' whole philosophy, it only really caught fire, only became truly electric when Johan Cruyff signed 2 years later in 1973. Perfect match, and boy did it pay off quickly. And for Michels, total vindication of his system, but sustaining a revolution. The sources detail a pretty sharp decline after that amazing 74 season. There was this unavoidable friction building. Specifically, Michel's style, described as strict authoritarianism, started grating against the players' need for creative freedom, especially Cruyff, you imagine, and the consequences were immediate. The results dipped, sure, but maybe more importantly, that philosophical edge, the style demanded by the 5-0 standard, it wasn't consistently there. The legacy of that 5-0 had permanently altered the emotional and tactical landscape of El Clásico. It created this expectation for style that even the guy who started it couldn't quite maintain. Enter Hennes Weisweiler, 1975. He comes over from Borussia Mönchengladbach. His plan was to modernize Barca even more, bring in his trademark German discipline and a fast, direct style. A gamble that failed fast. Weisweiler's very structured method quickly collided with Cruyff's free-spirited interpretation of football. oil and water. And where did this clash become most obvious? Against Real Madrid in the 75-76 season, Barca looked disjointed. They were caught in this limbo between Weisweiler's rigidity and Cruyff's improvisation. Weisweiler wanted physical intensity over positional artistry. But Cruyff, he held on to that standard set before. El Clásico demands aesthetic control domination through intelligence. And the press jumped all over it, portraying this coach versus star battle as symbolic of Barca's wider identity crisis. Which, I mean, it kind of was. So Weisweiler, gone after just one season, it hammered home, as the sources put it, the harsh truth, which led to this short but important breather. An interim coach, Lionel Ruiz, took over in 1976. And even though his time was brief, it was significant. It was a moment for the club to just pause and reflect. Ruiz basically went back to basics. He re-emphasized the core values that actually would become central later under Cruyff the coach, and obviously for La Masia. Things like ball control, creativity, and the nurturing of young talent. Sort of reinforcing the philosophy, he reframed the question for the club. Could they win against Madrid while remaining faithful to its ideals? His short tenure really cemented the lesson. Identity first, then results, which set the stage for the final act of this specific era, bringing Rinus Michels back. And the motivation, according to the sources, was kind of twofold. On one hand, pragmatic, the club definitely needed discipline restored after the recent turmoil. It was also symbolic. The fans apparently yearned for identity, and Michels, despite the earlier friction, still represented the architect of that glorious 5-0 identity. This second spell also lined up with the twilight of Cruyff's playing career at Barca, so the dynamic shifted. And the objectives too. While Barca wasn't steamrolling Madrid like in '74, Michels did succeed in restoring dignity and competitiveness. The sources highlight the crowning achievement, which provided a kind of emotional closure for that Michels-Cruyff partnership, winning the Copa del Rey in the 1977-78 season. The last Clásicos of this Michels-Cruyff period reaffirmed the required style.
Now, when Cruyff lands in Barcelona in '73, Real Madrid is, well, they're sort of coasting on the fumes of a previous golden age. Our research paints a picture of a club that's become quite conservative, very inward-looking, really dependent on its history, its reputation, rather than looking for, the next tactical edge or innovation. And that belief, it really cost them, big time. It cost them Miguel Muñoz, their legendary manager. I mean, this guy served longer and won more than anyone else in their history. But the records show, by the early '70s, his tactics were seen as, well, stale. His authority wasn't what it once was. And then came the breaking point, the big one. That infamous match in February 1974, the 0-5 at the Bernabeu going against Cruyff's Barcelona. Muñoz was gone just months later. Madrid didn't go out looking for their own visionary to counter Cruyff. Nope. They went for the familiar faces, the club men or the strict disciplinarians. Look at Luis Milani. He steps in his interim in '74, then gets the job properly later, from '77 to '79, a total club loyalist. His style was pragmatic, steady the ship kind of thing. But fundamentally, he was about continuity. One historian described him perfectly as the caretaker of an institution avoiding its own modernization. They wanted comfort, not change. Then came Miljan Miljanic. He managed from '74 to '77, came over from Red Star Belgrade, brought in discipline, structure, which, they probably needed. And look, it wasn't a total failure. He delivered 2 La Liga titles in a row, '75 and '76. But it wasn't enough for the fans. They found his football, his style, quite defensive, controlling, sterile is the word used, especially compared to the flair Cruyff was inspiring at Barca. So pressure built, and he was out in '77. Madrid's great mistake was confusing authority for progress. That's the key phrase. They kept falling back on either recycling former players like Maloney or hiring these strict, discipline-focused managers like Miljanic. And yeah, brought some short-term stability, couple of league wins, sure, but absolutely no ideological renewal. That era, defined by Madrid's dominance, punctuated by Barca's symbolic defiance, it closes with Franco's death in 1975. The impact is immediate. Barcelona proudly restores its full Catalan name, Football Club Barcelona. The Señera returns to the crest, Real Madrid. Having benefited so much, perceived or real, from the regime, they suddenly have this urgent, painful need to shed that image of the dictator's club and reinvent themselves as a purely sporting entity on the world stage. The whole dynamic shifts again, right? So Spain transitions to democracy, the rivalry shifts again. It's not quite dictatorship versus resistance anymore. It's more like regional pride and newly autonomous Catalonia versus the established central authority of Madrid. Barcelona really leans into the make un club idea. Meanwhile, Madrid, they're not standing still. They start producing their own incredible generation of homegrown talent. They look inwards. They emphasize their glorious history, yes, but crucially, they focus on their cantera, their youth academy, rather than relying on any perceived state help or propaganda value. This leads to the meteoric rise of La Quinta del Buitre, the Vultures cohort. 5 homegrown stars who came to embody Madrid's self-reliance, their purity of purpose after Franco. It was a really important rebranding exercise for them. The core 5 were Emilio Butragueño El Buitre, the Vulture himself Miguel, Manolo Sanchis, Martín Vázquez, and Miguel Pardeza. All academy graduates. And they were incredibly successful. Won 5 La Liga titles in a row, 1985 to 1990. They reasserted Madrid's domestic dominance fair and square in the democratic era. Barcelona. Defined by chaos, really. Flashes of absolute genius, but instability. Their biggest signing was Diego Maradona in '82, world record fee. He represented the peak of individual talent, almost the opposite of Madrid's cohesive unit. Like in 1983 at the Bernabeu, of all places, he scores that incredible goal, dribbles past the keeper, waits for the defender to slide past, then rolls it in. Even the Madrid fans applauded him. But his time there was turbulent. He had a serious injury from a brutal tackle. He got hepatitis, clashed with the club president, Josep Luis Núñez. The 1984 Copa del Rey final against Athletic Bilbao at the Bernabeu again. A mass brawl kicks off at the final whistle, and Maradona is right in the middle of it, kicking and punching. It was chaos. He was sold to Napoli that summer, and then came the betrayals, the first big one of the democratic era. Bernd Schuster, 1988. Schuster was Barca's brilliant German midfield engine for 8 years, heartbeat of the team. He leaves for Real Madrid after bitter disputes with the Barca board. For the Barca fans, this was just unforgivable treachery. A star player willingly crossing that divide. It set a really nasty precedent for what was to come. Betrayal number 2 is more of a missed opportunity, a strategic blunder by Barca that massively benefited Madrid. Hugo Sanchez, the Mexican goal machine, starring for Atletico Madrid. Real Madrid signed him in 1985. He becomes their lethal finisher, bags 208 goals. Here's the kicker. Barcelona had nearly signed him in 1984, but the coach then, Terry Venables, preferred Steve Archibald. So Barca's poor judgment lets their biggest rival snap up one of the deadliest strikers of the decade, who then fuels La Quinta's league titles. And the decade ends on another low for Barca, this time in Europe. 1986, they reach the European Cup final against Steaua Bucharest. Looks like their moment, but they lose on penalties. Their keeper, Helmut Dukadem, saves 4 consecutive Barca penalties. It reinforced this idea of a European curse for Barcelona, that the Champions League was somehow Madrid's special territory. But in 1988, they make a crucial move. They bring back their ideological father figure. Johan Cruyff returns, this time as manager. He promises a revolution built on total football a la Barca, focusing on possession, pressing, and crucially, La Masia talent. He's laying the groundwork for the dream team. Worked spectacularly. Cruyff's second coming delivered immediate, sustained success, and more importantly, a clear, beautiful ideological framework. The dream team philosophy, all about possession, pressing, bringing through La Masia talent, it became legendary. It was an amazing lineup. You had Pep Guardiola, the on-field brain, Ronald Koeman, the defender with that cannon shot, Michael Laudrup, elegant playmaker, Hristo Stoichkov, fiery, brilliant Bulgarian, and Romario, the Brazilian goal predator. Just incredible talent playing this fluid attacking football. They won 4 Liga titles in a row, 91 to 94. But the big one, the breakthrough, was the 1992 European Cup at Wembley. Koeman's thunderbolt free kick in extra time finally shattered that European curse. And Cruyff himself said after winning, "From now on, Barcelona will never be the same." He was right. Madrid's had huge domestic success in the meantime with that famous Quinta del Buitre generation. And even with all that domestic success, the sources say Madrid was already showing cracks underneath. Political instability, internal division, short-term planning. Meanwhile, Cruyff starts building his dream team, and Madrid gets sucked into this frantic cycle of just reacting. Just look at Leo Binhacker. He was manager from 86 to 89, won 3 La Ligas in a row, absolutely dominant, but his failures in Europe were glaring, especially that shocking 5-0 hammering by AC Milan in 89. That just exposed the limits of his approach. Cruyff was building a team to win the European Cup, and Binhacker, well, he got sacked for failing to match that ambition. Suddenly, all those league titles felt a bit hollow, and the managerial door starts spinning incredibly fast now. John Toshak comes in, 1989 to 1990, wins La Liga again, but he clashes with big players, Hugo Sanchez being the main one. His style was described as authoritarian. Result, dressing room unrest, and he's out the door pretty quickly. Then they bring back Alfredo Di Stéfano, the legend, as caretaker in 1991, purely symbolic really, an attempt to bring calm using his name. But the reports we looked at are brutally honest. His methods were seen as outdated. It was a case of Madrid looking backward for solutions while Cruyff was inventing the future. Which leads us to this really critical, almost unbelievable moment of self-sabotage, the sacking of Radimir Antic. He was only there from 91 into early 92. Now, Antic had actually brought some real tactical coherence. And get this, Madrid was leading La Liga in 1992. They looked good. And then as the source details, President Ramon Mendoza makes this bizarre dismissal. And the official reason given, lack of spectacle. And the result was immediate. Predictable, really. Total disaster. Madrid completely fell apart in the second half of that season. And who overtook them on the very last day to snatch the title? Cruyff's Barcelona. The managers who came next really felt the heat from that dream team. Benito Floro, 92 to 94. He tried bringing in more methodical approaches, new training ideas. He did win the Copa del Rey in 93. But his time is ultimately defined by the second 0-5 drubbing by Barcelona in January 94. Romario gets a hat-trick, including that famous cola de vaca cow's tail dribble where he just spins the defender. That just destroyed his credibility. Gone soon after. By this point, Cruyff's Barca hadn't just beaten Madrid on the pitch, they'd won the war of ideas. Then came Jorge Valdano from 94 to 96. Now, he was different. He was seen as the modernist, the idealist. He genuinely wanted to rebuild Madrid by playing attractive, attacking football, actually embracing a philosophy maybe closer in spirit to Cruyff's. And he had success. He got that famous 5-0 revenge win against Barcelona. Ivan Zamorano gets a hat-trick this time. And significantly, a young Luis Enrique, then a Madrid player, scores one of the 5 against his future club. He brought through a young striker named Raul Gonzalez, and he won La Liga in 94-95. By any objective measure, he was doing well, but even he didn't last. He left in 96. Why? Internal politics and disagreements with Mendoza. It seems the instability within the club was just too deep-rooted by then. Even successful modernizer couldn't survive it long-term. But the dream team, like all great teams, was maybe a fragile ecosystem. It started to unravel due to internal conflicts. Michael Laudrup, a key part of that midfield magic, fell out bitterly with Cruyff. He defected, that's the word always used, to Real Madrid in 1994. Another major betrayal, straight from the heart of the dream team to the arch-rival. But then, just 2 years later, a counter-betrayal. Luis Enrique signs for Barcelona in 1996 on a free transfer. And he became this absolute icon of conviction for the Blaugrana. His reasoning was simple and direct. He went on to become a Barca captain, famously kissing the badge right in front of the Madrid fans at the Bernabeu after scoring against them. The ultimate turncoat, but in the other direction this time. When Cruyff left, Barca needed someone to calm things down. They brought in Sir Bobby Robson for the 96-97 season. Robson was the gentleman, right? A stabilizer. One source even said he seemed destined to follow a revolutionary.
I follow a legend.
His brief, explicitly, wasn't about reinventing anything. It was, and I'm quoting here, to restore dignity. And his strength was people management, that emotional intelligence. And he had this crucial helper, a young translator, who we now know as Jose Mourinho. He was vital for bridging those gaps. He won a treble, the Copa del Rey, the Cup Winners' Cup, and the Supercopa. But the skepticism was there. He wasn't seen as having this rigid system. He was pragmatic, flexible, switching formations 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, mostly you had to say, to unleash the incredible power of his big signing, Ronaldo Nazario.
President said to me, we need bums on seats, Bobby. We need a top-class striker. Do you know where there is one? I said, yes. I know there's a young kid in PSV that I like very much. I think he's terrific, but he's a risk.
The team was built around his explosive dynamism. Now, contrast that with Real Madrid that same year. Fabio Capello arrives. Instantly, he brought that Italian defensive structure rock solid, built around huge talents like Hierro, Redondo, Mijatovic. So while Robson was sweeping up the cups, Capello delivered the big one, La Liga. But here's the kicker, the thing that just screams institutional impatience. Despite Robson's treble success, Nunez and the board, they always saw him as temporary. They were already lining up Louis van Gaal behind the scenes. Rob's got pushed upstairs into this ceremonial sporting ambassador role. Basically a polite firing. A betrayal, really.
With a situation in Barcelona which had no patience. No patience. You understand patience? Understand? Wait, espera. El trabajo se echa una situación.
Ronaldo, a Barcelona.
And then, Ronaldo Nazario, or Fenomeno, had one season at Barca under Bobby Robson. It was unbelievable. 47 goals in 49 games. Looked set to define an era. Gone. Contract dispute with President Nunez. Couldn't agree on terms. Sold to Inter Milan. Just like that. Another case of Barca having a world beater and somehow losing him due to internal issues. And get this, on the Madrid side, Capello wins the league title. And he's also gone after one season. Internal politics, feuds. It just shows the level of chaos simmering beneath the surface at both clubs. That impatience leads directly into the next big conflict. Louis van Gaal's first spell begins in 97.
Volgens mij is vanaf vandaag Barça het Barça van Van Gaal.
This is Barca trying to get back to Cruyff's ideas, but filtered through with authoritarian precision. Positional play, but incredibly rigid. Players had very little freedom. And he brought in a flood of Dutch players, Kluivert, Cocu, the De Boers, Reiziger. Training became, and this is a quote, militarized. He won back-to-back league titles, which you can't ignore, but the atmosphere, it turned sour fast. The Spanish players, the veterans, they resented the Dutch influence. Van Gaal himself was painted as cold, dictatorial. And we have that very specific, famous example, Rivaldo clashing publicly with Van Gaal. Now, what's fascinating is comparing Van Gaal's iron grip with what was starting to happen at Madrid. In 1998, Madrid finally gets back to the pinnacle of Europe. After 32 long years, they win La Septima, their 7th European Cup, beating Juventus 1-0. This restores their identity as Europe's kings, balancing out Barca's domestic dream team era. They had their own brand of chaos. They sacked Jupp Heynckes right after he won them the 98 Champions League. Total instability. They cycled through coaches until they landed on Vicente del Bosque. He was the antidote to Van Gaal. Understated, brilliant at managing egos, balancing all that star power. He handled the human side beautifully, something Van Gaal, with his rigid system, just couldn't seem to do. But then comes the moment that just blows everything up. The defining rupture of the era. 2000.
The stage is now perfectly set for the most venomous, defining act of the new millennium. The ultimate shockwave. The act of sporting treachery that people still talk about with raw anger today. The Figo bombshell, summer of 2000. Luis Figo, Barcelona's captain, their best player, their idol, the face of the club. He was the guy, seemingly untouchable. Then comes the Real Madrid presidential election. Florentino Perez is challenging Lorenzo Sanz. Perez makes an outrageous promise. If elected, he will find Luis Figo from Barcelona.
Si yo soy presidente del Real Madrid, Luis Figo será jugador del Real Madrid.
Everyone laughs it off. Impossible. Figo publicly denies everything, swears loyalty to Barcelona. But behind the scenes, things were tense. Figo felt his salary didn't reflect his status as, one of the world's best players. And his agent, Vega, he sees this opportunity immediately. He realizes, okay, if Barcelona won't pay Figo what he's worth out of loyalty, they're going to have to pay it out of fear. Some kind of external pressure to force their hand. Perez gets in touch with Vega through intermediaries. They start these very secret negotiations in the spring of 2000. But Vega isn't there to discuss a real move, which brings us to the document that sealed Figo's fate. This pre-contract agreement. This wasn't just some handshake deal. It was loaded with this conditional risk. First, a guaranteed salary for Figo that was, astronomical for the time, way more than Barcelona was offering. Second, a huge signing bonus if the move actually happened. But the third part, the part that turned this whole thing into a trap, was the penalty clause. We're talking a penalty of around 5 billion Spanish pesetas, which is about 30 million. And this penalty gets triggered instantly if Figo refuses to join Madrid after Perez wins the election. So why on earth did Vega sign it? The entire strategy was built on the assumption that Florentino Perez had absolutely no chance of winning that election. This is where it all goes wrong. The entire meticulously built plan it unravels with one single announcement. Florentino Perez unexpectedly wins the Real Madrid election in July of 2000. The second Perez is declared the winner. That harmless pre-contract, the one based on an impossible condition, it becomes fully binding. Instantly. Boom. Figo crosses the divide. For a then world record fee of 60 million. Paid by Perez, partly by selling off Madrid's old training ground. It was designed to decapitate Barcelona, to humiliate them, take their symbol, their captain, their best player, in the most public, hostile way imaginable. When Figo returned to the Camp Nou wearing white in November 2000, the atmosphere wasn't just hostile, it was poisonous. The sources confirm fans hurled everything at him. Bottles, coins, mobile phones, a whiskey bottle, and most famously, a severed pig's head. The game had to be stopped for 13 minutes. It was so dangerous. The pig's head perfectly encapsulates the deep, raw, almost primal sense of betrayal felt by the fans. It destroyed Barcelona's unity, the dressing room was shattered, and Van Gaal, already battling the press and the politics, just resigned that summer. It was too much. This wasn't just about money. It was existential rage. Figo became the ultimate traitor in football history, and his transfer was the explosive opening act of Perez's Galactico era. So Florentino Perez pulls off the Figo shockwave. His strategy is now crystal clear. Zidanes y Pavones, but really one global superstar signing every single summer. This is the first wave of Galacticos built on pure global celebrity power. We had Figo in 2000, then Zinedine Zidane in 2001, another world record, 77 million. Then Ronaldo Nazario, El Fenomeno in 2002, and finally David Beckham in 2003. And honestly, for a while, it worked. Initially, Madrid were flying. Del Bosque did a masterful job blending Figo with Zidane, Raúl, Roberto Carlos. That Galactico mix worked pragmatically. They won the Champions League again in 2002. Looked like they'd found their formula. Zidane scores that iconic left-footed volley in the 2002 Champions League final against Leverkusen. Just breathtaking technique. Clinches La Novena, their 9th European Cup. Madrid seemed utterly invincible, this global marketing machine. After Figo, Barca just fell apart. Identity crisis central. They tried. Laurent Serrafera didn't really have the authority. Then Carlos Rexach, he brought back some local connection, but tactically not much progress. The club was totally fractured, but the chaos wasn't done. Barcelona, in desperation, actually brought Van Gaal back in 2002. So the game had moved on, his methods felt old, the players pushed back hard, results tanked. He was gone again by January 2003, utter disarray. But here's the truly stunning part, the ultimate proof of that boardroom instability. Del Bosque, the guy who won them La Liga and the Champions League, who balanced the Galacticos, sacked, same year, 2003. Because Perez, flush with his Galactico vision, decided he wanted marketing appeal over continuity. That successful, balanced team deliberately destabilized, trading stability for, as one source puts it, brand power. It shows how boardroom politics, Perez's project in this case, just bulldozed any kind of sensible footballing plan. Which, thankfully for Barcelona, leads us into the final chapter of this era, Renaissance and aesthetic triumph, 2003 to 2008. It starts with Joan Laporta winning the presidency in 2003. The newly elected Barca president, Joan Laporta, had actually promised to sign Beckham if he won. But Beckham himself insisted on Real Madrid. Apparently it was his dream club. So Laporta denied his big English star, pivoted, and signed Ronaldinho instead. And crucially, Laporta listened to Johan Cruyff, who recommended Frank Rijkaard. Young, calm temperament, he seemed like the perfect fit after the emotional roller coaster and the dictatorship fatigue. But his trust in key signings like Deco and especially Ronaldinho, alongside the emergence of Xavi, it just sparked this incredible transformation. Samuel Eto'o. When Real Madrid signs him as a young teenager, perfect launching pad at one of the biggest clubs in the world. But for Eto'o, that dream, it very quickly turned into a real frustration. Madrid just consistently pushed him to the margins. They kept sending him out on loan. And so that leads to a major shift. He leaves Madrid for good and signs with Mallorca. And the sources make it crystal clear that his drive at Mallorca was fueled by one single goal: show Madrid exactly what they had just lost. Oh, and he didn't wait long. He started scoring against Madrid pretty regularly. But the biggest moment, the one that really stung Madrid fans, that came in 2003. Mallorca beat Real Madrid 5-1. He scored 2 goals in that absolute rout. Which brings us to 2004. The move that would define his entire career and take his rivalry with Madrid to, well, a legendary level. He signs for FC Barcelona. They finished second in his first season, then won La Liga convincingly in 2004-05, but the moment that truly signified the shift in power came in November 2005. Ronaldinho scored 2 unbelievable goals, just danced past the Madrid defense twice. Pure magic. And in this truly shocking, amazing moment of respect, sections of the Madrid fans stood up and applauded him. It felt like a spiritual passing of the torch, like pure artistry could actually transcend even this rivalry, proof that style could beat the Galactico machine. Rijkaard's flexible 4-3-3 system allowed the artistry to flourish again, but within a structure. And critically, let's not forget, a certain Lionel Messi made his debut under Rijkaard. Barcelona's European redemption came in 2006. They lifted the Champions League trophy, their second one, beating Arsenal in the final. Ronaldinho orchestrated everything. At the same time, Madrid's first Galactico project was kind of collapsing under its own weight. Couldn't adapt tactically, hadn't reached a European semifinal since 2003. Philosophy and team building had temporarily beaten raw star power. They managed a brief but significant strike back. Won back-to-back La Liga titles in 2007 and 2008 under Fabio Capello, and then Bernd Schuster, the former traitor. And then you have Messi's amazing hat-trick in the 2007 Clásico, cementing this shift. And the humiliation for Barca peaked in May 2008. Madrid had already won the league. In the Clásico, they thrashed Barca 4-1, called La Manita Blanca, the white little hand. And before kickoff, as champions, Madrid forced the Barcelona players to give them a pasillo, a guard of honor. Now, by 2008, things did start to fray a bit at Barca complacency, off-field issues, and Rijkaard eventually left. But crucially, he left behind a structure, a philosophy, ready for Pep Guardiola to take it to the next level. He didn't leave a dumpster fire.
Barcelona come to replace Frank Rijkaard. They wanted either Jose Mourinho or Pep Guardiola.
You think of the comparative CVs at that point. Mourinho has won a Champions League, he's won UEFA Cup with Porto, he's won 2 league titles with Chelsea. Guardiola's had 1 season managing Barcelona's reserves, and still they give it to Guardiola because Guardiola's one of them.
He reflected their values, their identity, more so than Jose Mourinho.
After that rejection, it's almost like that's the moment which he becomes the Dark Lord. That's the moment in which he decides, I am that which Barcelona is not.
Em sento fort, em sento que estic disposat a aquest repte i creieu-me que si no ho sentís no estaria aquí assegut.
Guardiola immediately makes huge calls, sells off the aging stars, Ronaldinho and Deco, promotes academy kids like Sergio Busquets and Pedro, and rebuilds the entire team, the entire philosophy, around a 21-year-old Lionel Messi, and the results were immediate. And the absolute highlight, the statement victory, was the 6-2 humiliation of Madrid at the Bernabeu. Messi, Xavi, Henry just tore them apart. It confirmed that La Masia's systematic genius, Guardiola's philosophy, could absolutely destroy Madrid's collection of stars. Florentino Perez, who had resigned in 2006, saw his chance. He returned as president in the summer of 2009, promising to restore Madrid's pride. Galacticos 2.0 was launched. He breaks the world transfer record again. Signs Cristiano Ronaldo from Manchester United for $94 million. Also brings in Kaká, another Ballon d'Or winner, Karim Benzema, Xabi Alonso, assembling an other galaxy of stars. So Guardiola's Barca is playing this sublime, almost untouchable football. Madrid needs an antidote. Florentino Perez makes another huge move. He hires Jose Mourinho. Hired in 2010, fresh off winning the treble himself with Inter Milan beating Barca in the semis, famously, he wasn't just hired to win, he was hired specifically to fight to dismantle Guardiola's dynasty.
Me preocupa la construcción de un grande Real Madrid, no me preocupa el Barcelona, en lo absoluto. No hablo, no pienso, no quiero hablar, no quiero pensar del Barcelona en este momento. Si soy odiado en Barcelona, problema de que me odia, no problema mío.
And the battle commenced almost immediately. November 29, 2010, Mourinho's first Clásico at the Camp Nou. The result, Barcelona 5, Real Madrid 0. It was a tactical and technical masterclass. Madrid were utterly humiliated. Mourinho knew then he couldn't just beat Barca at football, he had to drag them into a fight. It got incredibly personal and nasty. The peak, or maybe the nadir, was that insane period in April-May 2011. 4 Clásicos in just 18 days. La Liga, Copa del Rey final, and a 2-legged Champions League semifinal. Madrid managed to win the Copa del Rey final, 1-0, Cristiano Ronaldo with a towering header in extra time. A small victory for Mourinho, but the Champions League semi was pure Barca. Messi scored that incredible solo goal at the Bernabeu, slaloming past half the Madrid team. The hatred just reached fever pitch. The press conferences became battlegrounds. Before the Champions League semi, Mourinho starts playing mind games, calling out Guardiola for supposedly criticizing correct refereeing decisions.
Entramos en una nueva era, que es la era de un tercer grupo, que es el grupo que en este momento solo tiene una persona, que es yo, que es criticar el acierto del árbitro.
Implying Pep tried to influence official, and Guardiola, who usually stayed calm, just snapped. He hit back with this unexpected fury in his own press conference, said Mourinho is the thing boss in the press room, the thing master, and that Guardiola didn't want to compete there, only on the pitch.
Mourinho me ha tuteado, yo también lo voy a tutear, me ha llamado Pep, yo le voy a llamar José. No sé cuál es la cámara del señor José, deben ser todas estas. En esta sala, él es el puto jefe, el puto amo, es el que más sabe del mundo, y yo no quiero ni competir ni un instante. Solo recuerdo que hemos estado juntos 4 años. Él me conoce y yo le conozco.
Mourinho was deliberately pushing the toxicity. He needed the anger, the chaos, the pressure to try and unsettle this Barca side that seemed almost unbeatable on pure footballing terms. Did it work? But then came the Champions League semi-final, and Messi delivered again. That incredible solo goal at the Bernabeu, slaloming past 4 or 5 Madrid defenders. Just genius. Barca won that first leg 2-0.
Josep Guardiola è un entrenador fantástico de fútbol, yo repito, pero ha ganado una Champions que a mí me daría vergüenza de ganarla, porque la ganó con el escándalo de Stamford Bridge. Y si este año gana la segunda, gana con el escándalo del Bernabéu.
The aftermath of that first leg and the general atmosphere led to maybe the ultimate symbol of how low the rivalry had sunk personally. Mourinho gets sent to the stands during the second leg, and then in a subsequent Super Cup match brawl later that year, he infamously walks up behind Tito Villanova, Guardiola's assistant, and pokes him in the eye. On camera, he would literally stop at nothing. It showed the historical political toxicity had just morphed into pure, ugly personal hatred between the camps. Mourinho got his ultimate prize. In the 2011-2012 season, his Madrid side finally broke Barca's hold on La Liga. They won the title with a record 100 points and a staggering 121 goals scored. They went to Camp Nou and won 2-1. That match is remembered. At the end of that season, he stepped down, visibly exhausted, drained by the relentless, toxic war with Mourinho. He admitted he just didn't have the energy for it anymore. Mourinho had, in a way, won the psychological battle, even if Pep won more trophies overall during their direct clash. So when Tito Villanova replaced Guardiola for the 2012-13 season, he inherited the impossible task, the task of maintaining perfection. But the bar had already been raised impossibly high by Madrid, and Mourinho's Madrid, meanwhile, fierce on the pitch, sure, but internally, sources say it was fractured by feuds with the press, feuds with club icons like Iker Casillas. The initial clash that season was just electric. October 7, 2012 at Camp Nou. A thrilling 2-2 draw. You had both Messi and Ronaldo scoring twice. Just peak stuff. But then Madrid managed a really defining tactical triumph later in the season. The Copa del Rey semifinal, they dismantled Barcelona 3-1 at Camp Nou, and then came the human story. Just immense. Villanova was diagnosed with cancer midway through the campaign. He was forced to step away temporarily. It must have created this huge emotional vacuum. And yet, despite that, Barcelona somehow clinched La Liga with 100 points, matching Madrid's record from the previous year. This feat feels less like dominance and more like sheer will, just pure resilience. That chaotic end really sets up the rapid transition we see in 2013-14. Gerardo Tata Martino replaces Villanova at Barca. Meanwhile, Carlo Ancelotti arrives at Madrid, bringing quiet confidence in Italian order after the Mourinho storm. And Martino, he tried to evolve Barcelona's signature style. He wanted to add verticality, which, basically means moving the ball up the pitch faster or directly. But this felt like heresy to a lot of Catalans who were just so used to that patient tiki-taka. Ancelotti, on the other hand, he made this genius tactical tweak. He converted Ángel Di María from a winger into this tireless, hardworking central midfielder. Really effective. And Madrid responds almost immediately by breaking the world transfer record again to sign Gareth Bale from Tottenham. The individual rivalry between Messi and Ronaldo is now the central focus of global football, and both clubs keep adding firepower. But the defining image of that year has to be the Copa del Rey final, April 16, 2014 in Valencia. Ronaldo was injured.
out for Madrid, and Gareth Bale just seized the night. He scored the match-winning goal after what the sources call a mythical 60-meter sprint past Marc Bartra. Just absolutely mythical, gut-wrenching moment for Barca. And Madrid, of course, they rode that momentum straight into achieving La Decima, their 10th European Cup. The 2014-15 season, now under Luis Enrique at Barcelona, brought a period of ruthless beauty. Barcelona acquired Luis Suarez, he joins Messi and Neymar, and boom, you have the mythic trident MSN, described as a blend of artistry, chaos, and cold-blooded precision. Just unstoppable. An incredible front three, maybe the best ever. You could argue it. Contrast that with Ancelotti's Madrid. They evolved into their own kind of Galactico symphony. Toni Kroos and James Rodriguez arrived. They looked amazing too, leading them on a phenomenal 22-match winning streak early on. And they won the first Clásico that season, 3-1 in October 2014. Looked like they might run away with it. But yeah, by March 2015, the second Clásico. Suarez's decisive strike seals a 2-1 Barcelona victory at Camp Nou. And just like that, the balance of power shifted immediately. That goal was massive, turned the league race. Totally. And the sheer dominance of MSN from that point on just drove Barcelona to sweep the treble Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League. They became the first European club ever to achieve 2 trebles. And that front three. They combined for a record 122 goals. Mind-blowing numbers. That philosophical battle, though, it led to chaos back at Madrid in 2015-16. Rafa Benitez came in. His rigid tactical approach clashed violently with that star-laden dressing room. Big time. As a result, a dominant, almost humiliating 4-0 Barcelona victory at the Bernabeu in November 2015. A real statement win for Barca. That humiliation led Florentino Perez to dismiss Benitez. But then Madrid finds another gear in Europe. Zinedine Zidane takes over as coach in 2016, and he leads them to something truly historic. The Champions League three-peat. 2016, 2017, 2018. 3 consecutive European Cups. Unprecedented in the modern era. Cristiano Ronaldo was at his absolute peak in Europe during those years, and the fire in La Liga Clásicos remained intense. In 2017, Messi scores a last-gasp 3-2 winner at the Bernabeu. And his celebration, he takes off his shirt and holds it up, name and number facing the stunned Madrid crowd. An iconic image of defiance. During the big push for Catalan independence in 2017, Camp Nou became a regular site of protest again. Chants of independencia ringing out at the 17th minute and 14th second of matches referencing the siege of Barcelona in 1714. It linked the modern political struggle directly back to that centuries-old narrative of Catalan identity versus central control.
We Catalans are victims of a state that is carrying out political persecution unworthy of a 21st century European democracy. An interim minister who conspired to destroy our health system. Political police units that fabricate false evidence against our leaders.
And then, in the summer of 2018, the duel that had defined this entire insane decade, it ended. Cristiano Ronaldo left Real Madrid for Juventus.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. There was a divorce between the club, Florentino Perez and Cristiano, and the contract, he wanted a better contract. The last contract he signed was in 2016. The club imagined that his career was going down.
Truly the end of the most intense, globally watched, star-studded era in the rivalry's history. And what followed was, chaos and crisis. So the 2020s kick off, and bam, the world changes. The COVID-19 pandemic hits, El Clásico gets played in these eerie, empty stadiums, all that unique, hostile, passionate atmosphere, gone. Just silence. Hit Barcelona incredibly hard. Years of financial mismanagement suddenly caught up with them in a big way. Madrid, partly thanks to Perez's more cautious approach and stadium renovations, remained relatively stable. But Barca, they were teetering. August 2021, Lionel Messi leaves Barcelona. They literally could not afford to renew his contract under La Liga's strict financial fair play wage cap rules, even with Messi reportedly willing to take a massive pay cut. He wept openly at his farewell press conference. It was heartbreaking. Madrid fans obviously mocked Barca's Messi dependency, but for culés, it felt like a profound betrayal by their own incompetent board, and maybe by the league's rigid rules that couldn't accommodate their greatest ever player. Yeah, here's the ultimate irony. April 2021, the whole European Super League fiasco erupts, in which 2 clubs are the last ones standing, refusing to back down, fighting UEFA and the leagues.
united in financial desperation, trying to break away and create their own system to escape the economic constraints they felt were crippling them. Madrid is quietly, efficiently rebuilding. Perez's long-term planning pays off. They win the Champions League again in 2022, their 14th, with these miraculous comeback victories against PSG, Chelsea, Man City. And it wasn't the old guard carrying them, it was the new generation stepping up. Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Camavinga, Valverde, they emerged as this stable, exciting, incredibly talented new core for Madrid. Then they won it again in 2024, their 15th. Just relentless. Xavi, the ultimate symbol of the Guardiola era, returned as coach in late 2021. He recommitted to the club's core philosophy, integrating that La Masia youth pipeline. Pedri, Gavi, Ansu Fati, and now Lamine Yamal emerging. And in March 2022, they went to the Bernabeu and demolished Madrid 4-0. A huge symbolic statement, a sign that maybe the Barca way could return. And they built on it. They won La Liga in the 2022-23 season, grinding out results, relying heavily on a strong defense led by Araujo and Ter Stegen, and goals from their new striker, Robert Lewandowski. So the balance kind of settled. Barca maybe ruled Spain again briefly, but Madrid still ruled Europe. Meanwhile, Madrid, back into the calm hand of Ancelotti, smoothly integrated new global talents like Jude Bellingham. But then, in early 2023, another massive scandal erupts, casting a long shadow over Barcelona, the Negreira case. 2023, it comes out that Barcelona had paid millions, over $7 million, between 2001 and 2018 to a company owned by Jose Maria Enriquez Negreira, who happened to be the vice president of Spain's refereeing committee during that time. Barca claimed the payments were for legitimate technical reports and consulting on referees. How did Madrid react? They seized on it immediately. Real Madrid TV started putting out videos highlighting historical refereeing decisions they felt went against them in games involving Negreira's oversight. They effectively accused Barcelona of systematic long-term corruption, of buying influence. Madrid was actively trying to dismantle Barca's Mekun club, moral high ground, painting them as hypocrites, as cheats. The historical narrative got completely flipped. But the big focus, especially after his explosive start, became Jude Bellingham at Madrid, first Clásico. Played at Barca's temporary home, Montjuic. Madrid win 2-1. Bellingham scores both goals, including a stunning long-range effort and a 92nd minute winner. And now infused with this layer of generational pride, it's not Messi versus Ronaldo anymore. It's about whose institutional model La Masia versus strategic spending will define the future. And the latest evolution, really 2023-2025, has truly redefined Galactico once more. Real Madrid secured Kylian Mbappe in the summer of 2024, joining that already terrifying core of Vinicius Jr., Bellingham, Rodrigo, Valverde, just immense firepower. In the Super Cup final, Madrid won easily, and the La Liga match in April 2024, Madrid 3-2 Barcelona, another Bellingham late show, securing the title basically. Interestingly, the 2024-25 season saw a shift on the pitch. Barcelona, now under new coach Hansi Flick, actually managed to dominate the head-to-head encounters. They won all 4 meetings, including another stunning 4-0 win at the Bernabeu in October 2024. Young Lamine Yamal was apparently sensational in that game. That same October 2024 match, the 4-0 win for Barca, was marred by racist abuse directed at Lamine Yamal from some sections of the crowd. Police got involved, arrests were made, a minor was banned from matches. A really ugly reminder of problems that still plague the game. April 2025 Copa del Rey final. Extra time, Real Madrid defender Antonio Rudiger gets a red card for apparently throwing an object at the referee. But the fallout was just as intense. Real Madrid, through their official media channel, released this highly provocative video heavily criticizing the referee's performance throughout the match. The pressure on the official was so immense that he reportedly broke down in tears during a later press conference. So the current state, heading into late 2025, is clear. The rivalry has shifted. It's not that intense, personal Messi-Cristiano duel anymore. It feels more systemic. It's the battle of a stable, wealthy, dynastic empire in Madrid versus this fallen giant in Barcelona, still haunted by scandal, financially fragile, desperately trying to rebuild and recapture its identity. What a history. Just monumental.
A ti por fin es en Madrid, ¿no? Sí, roban a los... O sea, se quejan, hacen... Ah, roban, ¿no? O sea,
Por supuesto, no es normal que el Barcelona haya pagado al vicepresidente de los árbitros más de 8 millones de euros durante al menos 17 años.